Hello there.
Ah, Star Wars. A trilogy of movies, and one of my personal favorite movie franchises of all time. There are many things that you just come to expect in Star Wars. Giant space battles, amazingly choreographed laser sword fights, and cringy dialogue about hope.
What is it they've sent us?
Hope.
But there are no absolutes in Star Wars.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
But if there were absolutes in Star Wars, I would argue that they would probably be one of these three things. Either furry little creatures to make Star Wars plushies out of. Well, I would know that one because, well, I own one. Saying the words, "I have a bad feeling about this" when something bad is about to happen.
I have a very bad feeling about this.
And finally, and my personal favorite one, severing people's limbs off. Ah, yes. It wouldn't be a Star Wars movie without a good old losing of the hand. If you have the last name Skywalker, you better watch out. It is destined that you will probably and eventually lose your hand, and I'm looking at you, Rey. Luke Skywalker was one of the poor souls who lost his limbs in the name of storytelling. But ever wondered if there was a deeper meaning behind his lost hand? Well, here's what I believe to be the symbolism behind Luke's hand. We see from The Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi a battle from the dark side and the light side over Luke Skywalker. Both sides pulling at him and trying to lead him to one side. Luke was in a constant battle within himself on what he should do. In Episode 5, we see the beginning of this, with Darth Vader revealing himself to be Luke's father, and then cutting off Luke's hand before asking Luke to join him to defeat the Emperor and ruling the galaxy as father and son. Luke, once escaping Bespin, received a new hand, one that was more robotic and machine-like. This showing the start of him becoming more like his father, becoming more like a machine. This was foreshadowed earlier in the movie when in the cave on Dagobah, where he saw himself in Vader's helmet when fighting a vision. Now going into Return of the Jedi, we see a new type of Luke. This Luke seems calmer and more collected, as well as stronger and more focused. Another symbol of him becoming more like his father is him showing up in darker black clothing at the beginning of the movie. This symbolizing him still struggling with the dark side. This compared to what he wore in the previous two films, he now bears the darker clothing of the Sith. Just like how his father Anakin did in the Clone Wars and into Revenge of the Sith as he turned into Darth Vader. This all was a build-up into the last fight and climax of the movie of Vader versus Luke as Darth Sidious watched them battle. Towards the end of the battle, we see Vader, after trying to convince Luke to join him in the dark side, now trying to get Luke to become angry and use his hatred. This works as we see Luke surprising Vader and absolutely destroying Vader with volleys of hatred and rage, which all leads to the end of Luke's descent into the dark side, with the cutting off of Vader's hand, throwing away his lightsaber and telling the Sith Lord that he will never join the dark side. All of this went full circle, from Vader cutting off Luke's hand in Empire Strikes Back, where Luke began his descent into becoming more like his father, to the cutting off of Vader's hand and ending his descent into becoming like Vader, and instead becoming more like his father Anakin, with the line, "I am a Jedi, like my father before me."